Bolts Nation, welcome to another episode of the Bolts Block Party. I am your host, Greg Wolf, joined by the always effervescent, look at the hair, Braden Coburn. We are here this morning with another episode, and we had to bring in the top dog of the organization. You have to say it like that. It is organization. Steve Griggs, our CEO, joins us this morning, presented by our friends at Jai Alai. Steve, thank you for joining us. You had no meetings this morning, so we were the first thing
nothing
on
all
the
day.
docket.
I just cleared it for you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Steve, our organization has been through an amazing roller coaster of emotions, highs, lows, more highs, of course, than lows the last decade. And a lot of that, of course, starts at the top. And the culture that you have helped to create in the Tampa Bay area, not just within the building, is remarkable to say the least. But I think we want to give our fans some insight to how you got to this point. And doing some research on the journey, Kobe and I, of course, we have our resources, and we've gone back. And we want to talk to you and go back all the way to Ontario, back where it all started, your love for hockey, because you did play some hockey as a youth, and we'll get into that. But talk to us about the journey, your love of hockey, and where it all started for you.
Well, I mean, like Kobe being from Canada, I mean, you learn to walk, and the next day you learn to skate. Right. So it's, I grew up in Toronto, and, my dad, my grandfather were into, the Toronto Maple Leafs and hockey, and so you were just born with it.
Did they play?
My dad played a little bit. My grandfather actually was an orphan from England.
Okay.
Came over at 16 on a boat.
Wow.
And worked on a farm in Valleyfield, Quebec.
Okay.
And stayed for 2 years, and then they gave him a visa, and he stayed.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's how we ended up here. But no, he was a huge fan. I mean, he sat there on his couch every single game, back when got cigarette and the ashes would go like this, and he'd be watching the whole game, like going, like watching the game, like moving, watching the game. And he had a love for the Leafs, and then my dad did. And then, I started playing at, 4 or 5 years old, and then ended up playing in the MTHL for a long time, played provincial junior hockey, and then spent 4 years playing at Wilfrid Laurier University, and finished there and went to Ohio University to coach for a little bit, and got my master's in sports administration, and then went from there.
What do you study in a degree of sports administration?
It's probably a little different today than it was back then. We didn't do analytics. We didn't do mergers and acquisitions. We were more like sports law, sport ethics, and marketing, most of those things. But it was a 2-year program. Then I went back up to Toronto, and because I couldn't get any jobs in the U.S. at that time. No one would hire me.
Why?
I didn't have a visa, one.
Right.
So, that's a big one.
Right.
So did you always think, like, I want to be involved in sports? Was that always the goal? Like, obviously had a love of hockey, but was sports, like, once you kind of got to a certain spot, like, hey, like, if I can't be playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs,
right,
I'm going to be involved in hockey or sports?
Yeah, and I didn't know coming out of Laurier or coming out of Ohio, I didn't know if I was going to be on the call it the team side or the business side. And it just eventually I had to get a job. I mean, so I ended up selling tickets for the World Championship of basketball. And then if you worked hard and you did well, you got a job with the Raptors. And so I was one of the first 10 employees with the Toronto Raptors back in the day. Yeah, so
doing sales.
So I wanted to talk to you about that because
I had to make some money.
I mean, I get it.
So the Toronto Raptors, there was the Toronto Raptors come to Canada, and it was a big move, expansion, selling basketball in Canada, in Toronto. What kind of challenges was that? That must have been fun, exciting, but hard.
Yeah. Our guys upstairs got it so easy. They got like, computers and databases and hard leads and soft leads. I mean, I had a shoebox with the leads in it from Dun & Bradstreet. And I mean, if you got caught with the wrong industry at that time, like dry cleaning, not buying a lot of season tickets for the Raptors at that time. But I mean, it was hard because people didn't really know the NBA, and it was foreign sport. But now you look at it now, and they sell it every game, and it's huge, and it's huge. And you look at all the byproduct of it is all these Canadian basketball players that are playing in the NBA now, that are doing amazing.
Help build that culture. But like Toronto, was that the same building as the Maple Leafs? So were you doing both at the time?
No, we played at Skydome. Okay. We played at Skydome which is now Rogers Center.
Yes.
So we played at Sky Dome, and we played some games in Hamilton, actually, and then we played at Maple Leaf Gardens. I mean, it was crazy.
So it was all over the place.
And then, our ownership was trying to build the Air Canada Center. So we were actually building it just as a hockey, or just as a basketball, with the IHL was going to play in there. I mean, remember the IHL?
Yeah.
So it was going to be the IHL. And then out of nowhere in the middle of the night, we got bought by Steve Stavros and Maple Leafs, and they took it over.
So you were part of that transition from Maple Leaf Gardens to, I guess, it would be Air Canada Center, Scotiabank Arena now.
Yeah.
Right.
Was your family, because you mentioned your dad and your grandfather, huge Leaf fans. Obviously, Maple Leaf Gardens, it's an iconic building. What did they think about that move, moving from that and you being part of that?
I mean, they were wondering when they were going to get their tickets.
Of course.
But, I actually got put in charge of moving everybody from Maple Leaf Gardens to Air Canada Center.
Wow.
That was my, real first big role, and which was not an easy role because you think about it, people had their seats since 1931.
Right.
They had their season tickets since 31, and it was like gone through generations, and it was like telling people like, Muskoka. It's like, okay, we're gonna move your location on the lake from this side of the lake to the other side of the lake, and by the way, you're gonna pay 3 times as much for that property, and you got a different view. Right. So
and you got to convince them that
Right.
that's
exactly. So I mean, it was a tough sled for about a year to do all of that because we brought every single person in one by one. So it was, but we got it done.
Did you take any memorabilia from old Maple Leaf Gardens?
I do have, yeah. There's some.
What'd you bring?
Long story. My dad started Tim Hortons with Tim, and I got a photo of Tim that's actually up in my office right now. Yeah.
That was one of my factor fixes, actually.
I know you guys had Vinny on,
We
but
did.
It's a photo of Tim Horton playing in the Montreal Forum, and John Beliveau is chasing him around the back of the net. It's a pretty cool photo.
That's an amazing photo. That
So,
actually was one of my
that and a chair. I took a chair.
You took a chair.
You got to
So
take a
have it.
chair.
Well, of course you do. Did the logo on it?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
legit.
Yeah,
Where's it at? Is it in your office here?
That's at home.
That's at home.
Yeah.
All right, so that was like in the late 90s. So then you jumped over to Minnesota Sports and Entertainment in 2000 to 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And what were you doing for those organizations? Same things.
I was doing whatever Todd Lightwicki told me to do.
Okay, so that's where the Todd Lightwicki relationship came into play.
So he brought me over. We were starting the Wild, and we were opening the building. So, the fact that I had already done an expansion team and already done an open up building. So I think they interviewed like 30 people before me. So if I chewed my food and used my napkin, he was going to hire me. So he did. And Todd and I worked there for 5 years and started the Wild. And, it was obviously wildly successful. But it's, they lost their team, which was really went down to Dallas. So it was the state of hockey. I mean, they needed an NHL team, and it's been, wildly successful ever since.
What went into building that arena? Because for me, that was one of my favorite places to play in. Yeah. I thought had just an unbelievable atmosphere. The exposed wood, they really kind of like brought in the wilderness part of it. And I think it's been a template for future arenas that have been built, what you guys did there.
Yeah, I mean, you really think about the history of Minnesota, and you think about the old St. Paul Arena that had the glass boards that you could see through, and I think they took all pieces of hockey. It wasn't just like an NHL building. It was a building for college hockey. It was a building for high school hockey, which sells out. Like they have their high school championship there, and it sells out. So it really brought the history of it, and also it wasn't about premium seating. It was about making sure every single seat, had an amazing view of the building, and it's like an old lodge. It felt like an old lodge, and it's really held the test of time. Todd and I had a lot to do with it. From the old pipe organ. We got the pipe organ here. Well, we had the Zamborg in there, so it was like a guy on a Zamboni organ up there. We had the lighthouse, which was important to So it really, I think when we come to think about what we did here in this building, a lot of this building was, it didn't have a soul when we got here.
Sure.
And we really took a lot of stuff that we had in Minnesota, which was, obviously what was important to Minnesota. Okay, what's important to Tampa, and how do we tie that things into here? So like, our Tesla coils and the organ, and making it, more of a tradition and a brand that's tied to this area.
Remarkable. So that was early 2000s, and then you made a leap over to the Orlando Magic from 07 to 2010. So what
You read my media guide.
I did.
Yeah,
So
wow.
what was the lure, so to speak, to get you to come from such a hockey market in Minnesota to jump back into the NBA realm in Florida?
Well, I think, in Minnesota, Todd had left.
Yep.
And
Went to Seattle, right?
Went to Seattle.
Yep.
I think you always want to find who you want to work for,
Mm-hmm.
and continue to be inspired. And I got a call, talked to Alex Martins in Orlando, and they're building a brand new arena.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already built 2 new arenas, so I started having this track record of building arenas, and which you should only do 1 in your lifetime. You shouldn't do 3 or 4.
Sure.
So it was, and I'd worked in the NBA before, and the NBA's, does an amazing job on the business side, and so it was just continuing to learn. Obviously, it was a bigger job, and
Mm-hmm.
My wife said we're going to move from Minnesota to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Bring it on.
Seems to be a theme over here. Right.
Right?
Know, right.
Well, Vinny, Gobi, we're not dumb.
Seems to be a theme, right? Smart.
Canadians, our blood gets thinner as we get older.
Exactly. We all become snowbirds
Sure.
once in a while.
Listen, I was
We
from
just
DC,
did it
I get
earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
So you come down to Florida, you work for the Magic, and then tell us again how the reuniting of you and Todd Leiweke came to be here at the Tampa Bay Lightning.
He was actually in Orlando for the NFL owners meeting.
Okay.
This was like March of 2010, and he says, "Hey, why don't you come over?" And I'm like, "Okay, I'll just come over and hang out and drink some fine wine at the the owners meetings."
Yep.
And he says, "I know a guy over in Tampa who might be buying the team." I'm like, "Have you seen what's going on in Tampa?" I mean, he goes, "Yeah, I'm thinking of coming down." I go, "Well, no, really. Have you seen what's going on in Tampa? It's a bit of a gong show over there."
Wasn't great at that time.
Yeah. And so he starts talking about Jeff Innick and saying, "I met this wonderful guy up in Vancouver," because I guess Jeff went up to the Olympics to watch. That was 2010, the Winter Olympics in Vancouver. And so he says, "I want you to come meet the guy." And I said, "Okay, I'll come." So it was actually, I came over in July when it was that night that, and Todd had already signed on. He was coming.
Okay.
So he was putting the hard press on me.
Got
And I'm like, I got to open this building. I love working on the Magic. But we met Jeff at the Don Cesar for dinner. It was the same night, I always remember this, it was the same night that LeBron decided he was going to take his talents to South Beach.
Yeah.
So, Todd's like, "Are you going to bring your talents to Tampa?" And I was like,
Yeah.
I got to think about this. So, but he put the hard press on, and, I think it goes back to full circle, is like my love for hockey and wanting to work in hockey because I love hockey. And then I got a 248 number calling me, and he was pressing me too. Eiserman starts pressing me, and so it's like, I was driving with my dad too one time, and then all of a sudden on speaker is like, "Hey, yeah, this is Steve Eiserman." I'm like, "Yeah, that's Steve Eiserman."
You get to feel it. You're a sought after free agent.
I mean, that's really what it was. I mean, that's wow.
Well, Todd and I had had such a great working relationship in Minnesota, and then dear friends forever. And so the 5 years here, I mean, we worked it hard here too. I mean, it was, people always think that we just sprinkled pixie dust. It was metal on metal here.
Sure.
Right.
No.
So I want to talk about influences, and Todd, I think it's fair to assume, was a very big influence on you.
Yeah.
Why is that? What makes him special?
I think it's, first of all, smart as heck, and just taught me so much on brand and selling, but it's also about how you create culture.
Yeah.
And he being beside him for 10 years, working beside him, you understand the importance of how you treat people and how you push people. You get pushed differently than you get pushed,
Sure.
and understanding that, and just how you making sure everybody feels important. And I think, we try to do that around this organization and around this arena. Is like, it doesn't matter if you're, part-time usher or you're the owner. It's how you treat people, and then how you treat your fans too. I think really that's the engagement. Like, at the end of the day, this organization isn't anything unless you have fans.
Right.
And so it's how you treat your fans, and it's not just the $1 million sponsor. It's the the guy that's paying, $30 in the upper bowl to watch a game and bring in his family. And if they feel like they've been treated in a world-class manner, they're going to continue to come back.
So what, again, at that time, we were not in a great place. Knowing the challenges that lied ahead of you guys, you and Todd and Mr. Vinnick, how did you, or I guess I could say, what was the thought process that went into taking a professional hockey team that was in a bad place and turn it into a culture shift for the entire city? It wasn't just about what you guys have done on the ice and inside these walls. It's how it's permeated outside of this building, outside of the downtown area and beyond, with how you guys have created what you have created today, which is a monster of a brand. And what was the game plan, so to speak, to turn this organization around?
Well, I think the fans were always here. Like, if you go back to when we won the Stanley Cup in 2004, the fans were here.
Right.
And then, obviously, unfortunately, we had the lockout of 2005, which, sort of, you're on this high of winning the Stanley Cup, and you can continue to attract fans and build the brand and build the fan base. You have that year off, it really was detrimental. And then, when the other ownerships came in, sometimes the priority is only on the hockey team. And okay, so if we win, they will come. And I think the philosophy has to be beyond that. And I think that's what we've always talked about is, how do we, we spent $100 million to transform the building, to create a great place to come watch hockey and concerts and events and NCAA like we had this weekend, which was amazing. But creating that product and service here that we've created here, community and what we do in the community. And, obviously Jeff is the most benevolent owner, and we really haven't talked much about Jeff and how awesome he is. But that was one of the reasons to come here too. But, just what the mandate was to do in the community. And obviously the Community Hero program, our Charge program, everything we do in community hockey now, all of those things there. And, basically, and back to Todd, is like, never say no to somebody. Always make sure we're saying yes in some form or fashion to in the community, because we get asked to do a lot of things in this community, but we always find a way to say yes, because the more we engage and give back to the community, the more that's going to come our way. And I think those have really been the testament of, you got to have a really good hockey team. And, we did everything we did to make that climb there on the business side. And when the team caught us, like in 2014, 15, it took off, and it's just been perpetual ever since.
2015, that's when I got involved.
See, that's
it, guys.
That's when the team figured it out. I did say that's when the team took off.
It's like he knew.
Yeah. So you're one of the premier executives in North America, in the world, really, and on the sports side of it. Okay, we're going to sprinkle some pixie dust on you here.
A little bit.
Trying to get the ratings up.
So obviously, as an executive, and it's natural for everyone, you have fears about what's happening. Was there certain skills that you developed that you had a fear of, that you knew that you had to develop this skill?
Yeah, I was always pretty good at selling, whether it be tickets or sponsorship or, when I was in Minnesota, I really got a feel on marketing. But there's other key aspects of the business, like on the finance side. Like, obviously, I can read budgets, and I manage budgets and understand, but you have to hire the right people around you for the areas that you probably need to learn more about. So we have Casey's great in the finance world, and so you find the people to supplement your gaps, or and I think being a really good executive means you got to find your blind spots.
Right.
Sure.
You got to find those blind spots in order to make sure that as you're moving through your career, you say, oh yeah, I know finance, I don't need to have a CFO here. And next thing you know, you're
in trouble.
The owner's saying, what's going on here?
Right.
And it kind of brings me to my next point. What were some of the lessons you learned along the way? I guess I want to say what failures did you learn from, or but maybe what mistakes or what things have you kind of grown from, or throughout your career, things that have happened that you've learned from?
Well, I've made a lot of mistakes. And I think, I remember my first CEO said to me, mistakes give you experience, and experience gives you wisdom. And so it's all right to fail, because that's how you become experienced.
Right.
So, I think you always make, dupe seated 250 tickets in a game once. So, I mean, those are just fundamental mistakes. I think where you really learn with your mistakes is how you manage people and say, okay, how could I have done that differently?
Sure.
I think that one is the key, because as an executive, at some point in time, you're just in charge of human capital. Mm-hmm. Everyone else is doing the work.
Right.
And so learning to manage people the right way and inspire people the right way. And, when you're young, maybe as an ex-hockey player, as an ex-coach, you think that you can just rail guys and women to get going, and that's not how you motivate people.
Right.
There's different ways to motivate people and different ways to push and prod them, and I think that is the key. The other key thing too is always having a high vision and values. And I felt that I have high values, but being able to communicate that to people, what the vision's going to be and what the values are of our organization. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes into play. And if you don't have that going early on in your career, then sometimes people think you're just out for yourself.
Right.
Like at the end of the day, I get more joy out of watching people get promoted, and sometimes some folks leave our organization and go on to other. But you got to be happy for them that you've made them lightning made, and they've gone on to do great things, and that's where I get the most joy now.
What are some of the aspects of the Lightning off the ice, I guess you could say, or the growth that you're most proud of?
Well, I think if I'm just talking on the hockey side,
sure.
The team side, obviously what we do in the community. I mean, that gives me the most joy in that. When I first got here, I think we were sort of, out of sight, out of mind. But I think if you go around and you look at everything we've done in the community, giving back has really been the most important piece. And then it all comes back to you. You look at the 2000 All-Star game here, the 2018 All-Star game, right. The celebration we had here, and
amazing.
And the joy that people had. I do poor man's research. I mean, if you go down Bayshore Boulevard, how many people are wearing Lightning gear,
yep.
just running? And it's I always talk about people wear stuff that reflects their brand and who
sure.
they are, and I think the fact that everyone wants to wear Lightning gear they're very proud of it, and I don't think that was in like 2008 or 2009.
No, I mean, there's no question we're a hockey town. I mean, again, like you just said, a testament to the visibility and the fact that you can't drive anywhere in this city and not see a Lightning logo, a flag, a bumper sticker. Like you said, it's more apparent than the other brands in this market. What is the thought process that goes in behind making the brand bigger than just the team and tying in with community partners and even like the apparel, like we're now with Travis Matthew and Lululemon and these big brands? That obviously is a part of the bigger picture, but right. The process that goes into that, because like again, you're thinking outside the box, so to speak. Yeah. So talk to us about how that brand has
I got my Peter Millar on,
Peter Millar, like I know the brand names now. So but again, we were never like that.
Right.
I mean, it was just like this is what it is, and now we've expanded it. How important is that now?
I think it goes back to day one when we got here, which was best in brands and less is more. And what I mean by that is you are who you associate yourself with. Sure. Who you hang out with. Yeah. But who your friends are. Look at you.
Who your co-host is.
Yeah, your co-host.
Facts, right. No,
See?
For sure.
And so for us, it was.
You're in trouble.
I remember we went to Jeff and said, there's probably about $1 million worth of sponsors that we probably don't need to be sponsors with, be partners with. And so we walked away from them.
Wow.
And back then we were bleeding money. So, $1 million is $1 million. Yeah. But it was about, associating with great brands. So when you look at Dex Imaging or Chase or USF, those are best in brands and best in people. And so I think that was what perpetuated us. And then, as you continue to grow your brand and as the team took off and did, amazing things in the playoffs, we doubled down on everything. Yeah. I mean, I always said, let's charge it to winning. Because when we started doing really well in the playoffs, you remember all those events in the Curtis Hickson Park, and we spent all the money to put the Gobos up on the Sykes building and banners all over the city. Well, that was all by design.
For sure.
And so it just creates that everyone wants to be a part of it, and it just really, it perpetuated the brand, and it perpetuated people want to be a part of something that's exciting and fun. And I think when you're in a town like Tampa, because there's a little bit of transient here.
Yeah,
I mean, we're all from somewhere else,
for sure,
except for the people who live in South Tampa,
right?
The fact is, they want to be a part of something,
sure,
and we've been able to pull everyone together,
Absolutely.
and they feel the pride of being a part of something.
What do you think is the hardest part of your job?
Other than doing podcasts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Being honest right now.
The hardest part of my job is there's nothing really hard. I mean, I worry about things. I worry about, and I think 1 year ahead and 2 years ahead. Will we have softening on tickets? Where are we at on the next partnership on this? I also worry about culture all the time. Mm-hmm. That's my number one concern all the time. Culture over strategy is what I always say, and always want to have a highly accountable, high-performing organization, and always making sure we're taking care of our people.
Sure.
And so, there's always things that say, what keeps Steve Griggs up at night,
right.
Which we use on our all-staff meeting.
Yeah.
But it's, we're looking at our RSN and where our RSN is going with Diamond. We all know you read in the paper, so we're concerned about stuff like that. And so, but for us, it's two things. One is understanding where the business is going for the future, but also making sure we're always taking care of our people.
Absolutely.
How strongly do you love hockey, obviously. So how strong is that urge just to walk down to Julian Breezewa's office every once in a while and just talk hockey? Where are we at? What are we thinking on this guy?
Like how involved are you on that side of the business, on the player development or the hockey ops side?
For the most part, I stay in my lane.
Yeah. You don't watch the game and be like, I saw this guy last night, and we gotta get this guy out of town.
Should have seen this guy in Oldsmar last night. He was awesome. And it's interesting because I've watched other sports executives. Like they lean so much into on the sports side of the business, and then they forget about the business side. Mm-hmm. And I never want to be that guy because I've seen it so many times. Like, okay, now you're like a hockey savant,
right?
Right.
Well, when I got here, there was a staff. I don't know if you guys still do it, but there was a staff lunch game you guys played in the rink out there. So I remember coming out. We practiced, and I was walking out of the rink, and I was like, "What's the men's league game going on out here?" and later on to find out that you guys had a good culture of you guys playing at lunch. Yeah. And then it was reinforced one time when I was in the locker room. I was late workout, and I saw Julian. I think Julian was assistant general manager at the time. Yeah. And he's in the hot tub. He's laid out. He's like, that's a tough game. And I remember talking to him. I was like, how did the game go? And he's like, 4 goals, 6 assists. +8. Very good. I was like, this game is serious. Yeah. And you guys did that here. And
that wasn't true either,
but you guys did that in Minnesota as well. I remember I read something that you guys did. You guys play pond hockey in Minnesota, and you brought that here, and you guys played
that was Todd and I. So I'll tell you a great story about Todd. When we were playing pond hockey, we were playing against this other team, or I don't know how it ended up, but we're playing outdoors. So this is like in Edina somewhere, and we're playing in this outdoor rink. And it was like really cold. It was like January. And so we're playing, and Todd's got the puck stuck in his skates there, and the guy just jams him. And like Todd falls down on the ice, and he had a toque on at the time. Right. So, he's dazed and fine, but he was fine. So then we go for breakfast after at this place called Mickey's Diner. I don't know if you ever remember Mickey's Diner in Minnesota. So it's like it's just it's an old spoon. It's an old spoon place. So, we're sitting there eating at the counter, and all of a sudden, it's warm in there, and all of a sudden, the blood starts dripping from his head into his eggs.
No, dude.
and the waitress walks by and goes, "You're bleeding in your eggs." So I mean, but that was the culture we created of everyone playing hockey, and we.
So they were safe. Let's say I was out there and I ran the boss. Like I ran him through the wards. Can I expect like a pink slip the next day?
Oh no, promotion.
A promotion.
Put him on the board.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have any superstitions yourself? Like game day stuff, or just we won last night, so I have to do the same thing this morning.
I have it became an expensive tradition, actually, really expensive, because, when playoffs start, you don't see your family much because you're on the road. And so we started going to Ocean Prime. Okay. So it started back in like 2008, probably 17 or 6, whenever we were kept on those runs.
Yep.
So we go the first game, first round.
Okay.
With my family. We sit at the same booth at Ocean Prime. You have to order the same meal, and it's the same every time. And we kept winning, so of course
You got to keep doing it.
of course, kids, they're like teenagers, like we're going back, right? So
That's surf and turf, Dad.
I know. Ocean Prime, too.
exactly.
Nice.
Tell me about it. I was like, it felt good the first time. So then we went like in 2020.
Kept going.
2021, 2020. I think I own a piece of Ocean Prime now. I've been there like so many damn times. We get the same table every time. I'm embarrassed now when people I walk in and go, "Hey, Mr. Reeves, same table." I'm like,
Norm. All right. Walk in there, Steve, hey, your table's waiting for you. So your wife Janelle served in the Air Force.
Oh, boy.
Tell us,
Wow.
how important the relationship also is with this team in the military. Because again, I feel like more than any other teams in the league, I feel like we have such a strong military relationship. How important is that to you?
Now you know how I got my visa, my green card. So no, she went to Air Force. She went to boot camp in San Antonio. I remember the first time we were just starting to date, and she had already graduated from Ohio, but we met when she came down for alumni weekend. So I was up there, and I stayed over one night because she lived up near Columbus, and I slept on the couch.
Okay, good man.
And she had to go to Reckenbacker Air Force Base because she was still in the reserve.
Okay.
And all of a sudden she comes down, and as a Canadian, like all of a sudden there's somebody in full fatigues in front of me. I was like, whoa.
Right.
It was like,
Am I leaving? Am I deported?
right.
Am I out
It
of
was
here?
my wife. It was my soon-to-be wife. And so, but yes, she spent 6 years in Air Force, and it's really, really important to our organization here. It was also in Minnesota that these are men and women who are doing amazing work to make sure we can do what we're sitting here doing what we're doing now. And John Franzone does an amazing job each and every game honoring the military. And I think if you go back to what we talked about with our organization, whether it's the community hero, whether it's
Salute.
the standing salute, it's whether we win or lose, when people come to a game here, they feel good about living in this community and being a part of this community, and that people are doing God's work and heroes' work in this community, and we should be proud of everything that goes on in this community. And we're stewards of this brand. We're stewards of this community, and they do great work. Yeah,
It's awesome.
So
here's a tough one for you. If you could give Stammer a job in the front office when he retires, where do you think he would excel the most in this organization? Coaching?
I think, well, coaching, I mean, that's a natural. And
Sure.
I thought you meant like front office.
No, just take
business
coaching out of it.
I think I've heard that he's pretty amazing at stats and can remember just about everything. So probably put him in like business analytics, put him in over in analytics.
I can see him pretty good as an actor in those videos he's done, those
he's pretty
tribute
good,
videos.
yeah.
Wow, good stuff.
He's pretty good.
Oh, the Mass Mutual one was really good too.
Mutual one,
Yeah. It's like Vinny, they got a career in acting.
What's the best non-hockey event that we have hosted or has been your favorite in this building?
Oh, I mean, there's been so many.
I know. So
I mean, volleyball this week
amazing,
was
right?
pretty amazing. We set a record for attendance. Well, I'm a big Eric Church fan, so that was a good one.
That was your.
That's my guy.
jam?
I was dressed like you going to Eric Church. Until I walked down the hallway with 2 beers in my hand. People were like, "Hey, Mr. Griggs!" I'm like, "Damn, busted."
I was there. That was a great concert.
Yeah,
Before we
good.
wrap
Seen it a
up,
couple times.
before we wrap up and get into fact or fiction, because I've been a part of it.
Game 5, Stanley Cup Finals.
Yes.
That was a pretty good event. Yeah.
amazing.
Oh, but you said non-hockey?
Non-hockey.
Non-hockey. Okay, Eric Church.
Okay,
There
Eric
we go.
Church. Fair enough. And again, since I've been a part of it, can we talk Stadium Series real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've talked to numerous people again because
You too, eh?
I have, I have because again, I'm fortunate that I've been able to host some Stadium Series again, the Winter Classic this year. So I've been around the outdoor folks and talking engineering and logistics, and I've heard everything with how the logistics involved with trying to have an outdoor game in Tampa.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like with technology today, right, and history and getting the Paul Delegatos of the world involved to figure out the almanacs and the coldest weeks in the history of Tampa, like all of that stuff. Do you feel,
which we've done?
I know, that's what I'm saying. Do you feel that it will happen someday?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I've been told it might be one day soon.
Is this breaking news on the block party?
I've been told we got to get over some hurdles.
Sure, no, I understand.
They want to make it happen here.
They do.
You know, Dean and Steve, I mean, who you know both,
Yep.
At the NHL, are really working hard to
Yes.
make it happen. We got some hurdles in another department.
Okay. Understand. I mean, we don't know what that means, but we'll take that for
But
what it is.
They're trying to line up the alumni game. That's it. You know.
Well, that's
that was the biggest
part of it.
challenge
Right,
right
the
now.
biggest challenge. Yeah.
So what I would say is they are looking at new technology in order to make sure we can cover the ice and protect the ice in case we do have any changes in the weather.
Sure.
So, you know, I've been working at this for better part of 7-8 years.
Right. Because sunshine and rain is the two big things.
It is, but I mean, obviously the game would have to be in the evening time, right? It'd have to maybe be a late start, an 8 p.m. start, again, to keep the ice temperatures as cool as possible, and like you said, covering the ice. I mean, I've heard things even as crazy as the ice is covered up until puck drop, and you literally have a helicopter come in and pull stuff off.
I mean, we've come up with some crazy ideas, but I think there's a company out of Dallas that has a covering system.
Yep.
That's on a rail that just will, and it's owned by a Canadian company, so it must be a good company. Sure. But they can just like push it and roll it back, and it goes down, and so that's what Dean and Steve are working on, and I'm hopeful because I think this community deserves
Huge.
it.
Now
they deserve it.
The question would be, would that be a matchup potentially with a Canadian team, because you're hopeful from the business side that you're going to get the Toronto fans or the Montreal fans a good matchup? Or is the philosophy, no, this is our state, we need to make it a rivalry game versus like the Florida Panthers? Which in your mindset is the better go-to?
Well, I'm going to offend somebody with that answer, aren't
I? Yeah, I mean, it's just the logistics. Like you said, is it more about us in Florida and hockey in Florida and having an outdoor game in Florida?
I'll take anybody at this point in time. How's that?
That's a good answer.
How's that?
Okay, so
that doesn't offend anybody.
Okay.
I don't need the Panther guys calling me. And
on the block party.
We'll take anybody.
Okay. So it is potentially, fingers crossed, someday there will hopefully be a stadium series
Hopefully
game.
Sooner rather than later.
Okay.
And we're getting there.
Okay. Fair enough. All right. It is time for Fact or Fiction, presented by our friends at Jai Alai. Steve, this is pretty simple. It's literally, these are either true statements or they are false. Okay, there might be some truth, maybe not quite, but that's what you have to kind of decipher.
Where'd you get this information?
We pulled our resources from former executives and associates of yours. All right, first up, Fact or Fiction, Steve. You used to plant trees in the summer.
I did, fact.
Tell us about that.
Kobe will know where this is. 4 hours north of Thunder Bay, Armstrong, Ontario. Spent 3 months a year for 3 years planting trees in the middle of nowhere. When they clear cut the land, and then you go in and then you
reseed.
Reseed, yeah. Well, they're not seeds. They're
actual trees.
Yeah. You put about 200 trees in your bag, and you go out into the woods, and you have a shovel.
Environmentalist to the
LinkedIn
profile.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
What age was that?
Go green. I was 19, 20, and 21.
That sounds pretty young.
But I would tell you, you're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're making $300-400. Oh man, I came home with $6-7 grand a year.
Okay.
Backed by bears and moose, and all good.
Oh yeah,
we run into. I was saying, like,
you run into bears and moose all the time. Yeah.
Okay, that's fun.
That's cool. All right, I got one.
Fact or fiction?
You're missing 7 teeth from your university hockey days.
Yeah, and a little bit of my jaw too. Fact.
What?
Yeah. Took a slap shot that actually, remember Steve Rushin played for Anaheim?
I do.
Yeah, he
played with him in Atlanta. I saw him drink a whole beer out of his shoe one night.
Yeah. Well, I played with his brother Larry, but we were playing Western, and a shot came from the point, and Steve tipped it up, and I was behind him, and it just came out and caught me right there and knocked out these 6 here and all the bone there. So the other top bone was in practice.
So you want to play hockey, kids?
I was going to say, well, no mouth guards back then, I'm assuming. No,
I had a mouth guard on the top. That's why I
saved
sheared out the whole bottom.
How long was that recovery?
1 period.
Yeah.
He was back on the ice. Like,
Hockey players.
Put the garage door on. You put the garage door on, and then you go back out. Yeah,
I'll never forget when Stammer took that puck
Same
to the
thing.
face and came right back out with the cage.
You just put the garage door
All
on.
right, so I want to make sure because I couldn't find another Steve Griggs on the stat sheet, but Von Rader, were you a Von Rader? Okay,
Von
so
Raiders,
this fact or fiction, in the 87-88 season, you accumulated 39 points in 39 games, 16 goals and 23 helpers. Fact or fiction?
Fact?
That is a fact. He was a point per player.
Point a game per player.
Point a game per player back when he was with the Von Raiders.
I have it in my notes here. He was a power play specialist in university.
Penalty kill, no.
There were no stats available for the Golden Hawks, but there were stats available for the Von Raiders.
I will tell you, it goes back to your philosophy. My philosophy is like, we went to 3 of my 4 years. We went to the national championships at Laurier.
CIS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
But I was, probably, we had a great team, so I was like a third line player. My first year, I was a 4th line player because we had such a good team. But I've always said to people, I'd rather be a 3rd or 4th line player on a championship team than a 1st line player on a losing team.
Fair enough.
And that comes back to, you don't want to be with a good organization, or you want to work for a.
Right.
I can't swear on this, can you? It's a family show.
So
Crappy organization.
fact or fiction? I know that you're a big organizer of the Canada Day party here in Tampa, and kind of the
Canadian Mafia.
one of the Canadian Mafia,
Yep.
founding members. But fact or fiction? You've never officially been screeched in.
Fact. I don't
know what that means. Screech from a Say by the Bell? Like, what are we? What is
Screeched in. It is a way that people from the Maritimes, Newfies, they welcome you into their fold, and you have to kiss a codfish. You recite a little chant, and you do a shot of Screech, which is kind of like a cheap rum, or it could be like a moonshine or something.
Yeah,
like
it's more like.
So do we need to do this
Newfie
on?
moonshine is what it is.
Newfie moonshine.
Do we need to do that on the next Canada Day party? We got.
Are you screeched in?
I'm screeched in. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
then I'll do it.
Okay, so you guys heard it. The next Canada Day, he's getting screeched in.
Which is, by the way, one of the best parties.
It is. We've DJ'd it for a few times,
Yeah,
my crew.
yeah.
All right, fact or fiction? You once played the role of a mascot.
Hey, you got to start somewhere.
So it's a fact,
Fact, yeah.
and that was for who?
Well, I've done it a couple times.
Do pictures of this exist?
Okay, so I did it here, actually.
Thunderbug?
You were Thunderbug for a little bit?
So, true story.
Okay.
So, Alex Martin's over at the Magic. The mascot drove him crazy.
Okay.
Like, he drove him nuts.
Understood.
And so he was my boss at the time.
Fear of mascots, or just
just they're especially in the NBA, they're
Different people.
they're a little offside. Anyhow, they're
Good
missing
term.
it.
a
Yeah.
lot of leg humping.
Yeah. Did you say leg humping?
I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
So I dressed up it was his 50th birthday. I dressed up in the Thunderbug outfit and did my skate around the ice in it and came to a stop and wished him a happy birthday.
That's amazing.
And I also wore it. Wow, that's a long story. That won't take too long. You got like 12 seconds.
All right. Fact or fiction? You've been known to fly around on a crotch rocket from time to time.
I got scooters, but I don't know if they're crotch rockets.
I mean, 2 wheels.
Yeah.
You're a motorcycle guy?
I used to have a Harley. Yeah,
You did?
I did have a Harley. I
Okay.
did have a Harley.
And
So
you got rid of it? I mean, Florida weather, I would think that this is
I had children in it.
there you go.
There was the balance
Kids.
of
Always
life
those
insurance
damn
policy
kids.
wasn't good enough. So no, yeah.
Okay. Final fact or fiction, Steve. You have a dog named after Ted Lasso.
I have 2 dogs, but I have one dog named Molson.
From the show?
No,
From the beer.
The beer.
I was going to say, I don't
beer.
watch the show. I was like, I know the beer, but okay.
Probably can't say that on this show.
And then the other?
Highlight.
Highlight.
Thank you to Jai Alai,
Roy Kent.
which is a character
Oi.
on the show.
Yeah,
which I
Ted
don't
Lasso.
watch,
Yeah.
but okay.
You don't watch?
I don't watch Ted Lasso. I'm working, so I'm always here. You know, don't
You've
have a lot
watched
of
Ted
time.
Lasso,
Oh yeah.
eh?
Oh yeah.
So you know who that is.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great show.
Pretty good
Great
stuff
show.
there.
Yeah.
All right.
Roy Kent. Oi.
Oi, oi. All right. Well, thank you, Steve, for joining us on the Bolts Block Party. I think we've got some pretty good backstory now about you and your journey, and
This is fun.
this has been pretty fun, and I've enjoyed it. I know our fans are surely going to enjoy it, and we thank you for taking the time to join
Absolutely.
us.
No, you guys do great work. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate it, and thanks to our friends at Jai Alai for once again powering another awesome episode of the Bolts Block Party, and we will see you guys soon. Thank you, Steve.
All right.